On the night of the 13th of January 2024, Film 4 aired to the two Ben Wheatley films, 2013's A Field in England and 2021's In the Earth, as a double bill. Both films star Reece Shearsmith, who, for those of you who don't know, is a fantastic character actor who you will have undoubtedly seen in something. But he is best known for the shows he has both written and performed in, alongside Steve Pemberton, The League of Gentlemen, Psychedelic, and, most recently, Inside Number 9, all of which I am currently obsessed with. I stayed up to watch it and it felt like such an experience as a double bill that it seemed appropriate to review them as such. Both films are indie low-budget psychedelic psychological folk horror films about a small cast of characters, one of whom is a very shaggy Reece Shearsmith, who go mad in the countryside. One of them forces the others to take part in something supernatural. Both feature psychedelic sequences, mostly of hallucinations brought on by mushrooms. Both have endings that are mostly satisfying, but still open-ended enough to make you wonder if there really was something supernatural going on, or if they were all just tripping balls. First off was the more recent film, In the Earth. Joel Fry, an actor you will certainly have seen in much smaller roles in much bigger films, stars as Martin, a scientist going to visit another scientist studying crop growth in a remote outpost in a forest, led by park guide Alma, played by Ella Torchia. After being robbed in the woods, they're met by Zach, a friendly hermit played by Reece Shearsmith, who offers to help them. However, they soon realise Zach is not all he seems. The film is set during an unspecified pandemic and was written in 15 days by Wheatley during lockdown in the August of 2020, filming only a couple of months later. I say unspecified, but I suppose you could read it as being COVID? Although some have referred to it as an apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic film, there is talk of restrictions on said pandemic being lifted soon, so it doesn't feel like it fits into those genres. It doesn't play a big role in the story, and you could even argue that it doesn't need to be there at all, but it is still really important to the film thematically. It's because it's all about isolation and paranoia and pattern finding to make sense of a world that no longer makes sense. It's not the kind of film that could only be written in lockdown, but it's certainly unsurprising that it was. The dialogue is so subtly wonderful in this. The lines are so ordinary on the surface, but there's plenty to read into them, especially on rewatch. So much of it relates to the themes, but still sounds so natural. It takes a while to settle into the film. All the characters we see interacting are strangers in the beginning, and conversations between Alma and Martin are quite awkward and polite at first. Everyone in this ensemble is brilliant, particularly Shearsmith and Hayley Squires, who had the more interesting stuff to work with. I see that it didn't do well with audiences, but I've seen very little horror, so I suppose I went in with fewer expectations as to what to see. It is a tense film, but if you're expecting more gore than some very nasty gashes, you will certainly be disappointed. I didn't expect more from the climax, but I can understand why someone would. It's like a psychedelic Lord of the Flies. The horror is the human mind in this, and it certainly leaves you with questions. If you thought that film was strange, A Field in England says, "Hold my beer." In this, Shearsmith stars as Whitehead, a timid, pious and studious servant of a necromancer who deserts during the English Civil War. After stumbling across two other deserters, a man offers to lead them to a local tavern, only for him to be working for rival necromancer, O'Neill, played by that Irish guy from Spaced. Using a combination of mushroom soup and torture, he forces them to search for treasure in a field. This film has another great script, this time by Wheatley's wife Amy Jump, but it is written in early modern English or an approximation thereof. So, whilst everything is understandable, you might miss something as you take extra time to process it. I didn't mind it, but I did miss a few things on the first watch. Then again, it was 1 AM when it started, and I'd started getting a bit hyper by then. Anyway, it might be a good idea to watch it with subtitles if you're worried about missing anything. Whilst there are a few darkly comedic moments in the Earth, there's definitely more comedy in A Field in England, partially from the character interactions and partially from Jacob and Friend being high as a kite. I like the character of Friend, played by Richard Glover, who is a fool in the archetypal sense that really feels like a throwback to the fools of literature of the time. I love the bit where Cutler asks him how someone as stupid as him has stayed alive for so long, and he replies with,
"Commanding officer says I have fresh air between my ears. Fresh air is good for a man's constitution, is it not?"
Once again, there's a fantastic ensemble cast here. Michael Smiley is genuinely intimidating with a hint of pomposity as O'Neill, a servant who ran away and became a necromancer himself. I'd say this film is more violent, But of course, the nature of black and white means that it doesn't have the same impact. I'm guessing where you stand on that will probably vary, but like the previous film, it's certainly not gratuitous. Like in The Earth, the horror comes from the company these characters are in, and the humour both contrasts and complements the more unsettling moments in the film. Fun fact, this film was the first, or at least one of the first films to do a simultaneous release on home media and in cinemas. For the looks of it, it didn't work in the film's favour. I remember Mark Kermode made some videos about it, so I'll link those in the description. It was really interesting to see a double bill like this, in which the actor plays an antagonist in one film and a protagonist in the next. I didn't need it to be driven home to me what a fantastic actor Reece Shearsmith is. It was still fascinating to see nonetheless. As Zack, he's casually threatening, as an unhinged person who believes he's being totally reasonable. He shines the most during the moments where he's doing horrible things whilst talking so normally that it's somehow both humorous and disturbing at the same time. As Whitehead, he's loyal, pathetic and vulnerable, and we the audience genuinely want to see him break free from the bonds of servitude and cowardice over the course of the film. The soundtracks of both are really atmospheric and feed into the tone of their respective films. Clint Mansell's In the Earth soundtrack is strange, tense and electronic, much like the sounds of Dr. Wendel's Experiment. It may seem like a strange choice on paper for a film set entirely in a forest, but it works so well at creating the atmosphere of this beautiful environment that is throbbing with life, and feels like there is something more to it. Jim Williams' A Field in England score, on the other hand, is more varied, with folk music and wall drums, as well as ethereal music towards the end as Whitehead reaches his epiphany. I'm not great at talking about music, can you tell? I don't know much about lighting or cinematography either, but it is stunning in both. Watching them as a double bill is especially striking because it helps you appreciate the use of colour in The Earth and the use of black and white in A Field in England. Both of them take advantage of the natural scenery, which is so essential to the sense of place in both films. If you stayed and watched the Next Time teaser at the end of my last video, which I put at the end of every video by the way, you'll have seen that both films use flashing images and strobe effects. I think they're incredibly effective in both films at creating the fear and confusion the characters are experiencing. When filmmakers deviate from naturalistic presentation, unless they are aiming for comedy, they are almost always called pretentious, regardless of whether or not it is warranted. My favourite film is Head, and if you've seen that then, yeah, you know I'm not one of those people. Not that I'm a snob or anything. If you don't like either of these films, then I'm not going to think less of you and your opinions. I get it. I can see why these films would be alienating and unsatisfying to many people. Not everyone wants to have a full-on Jack Skellington-style mental breakdown when they watch a film, and I can't blame them. Basically, look at the Rotten Tomatoes scores. If you tend to side with the critics' score on something like this, then you'll probably enjoy them, as they are both certified fresh. If you tend to side with the audience score, you may want to skip them. I was surprised that A Field in England had a better audience score out of the two, but it is filmed in black and white, so I suppose people need to expect something strange and artsy from the outset. Obviously, I'm not going to insist that you spend 3 to 4 hours of your life watching these two back to back, but I can't deny that it was a fantastic experience. I was so engrossed in it that I wasn't even bothered by the fact that there were ads every 2 minutes. The two films are similar enough in plot and atmosphere, and yet still feel different enough not to feel like you're watching the same thing twice. I wouldn't rule out making a video essay on either of them at some point. There's definitely plenty to talk about with each of them. I've seen both of these films at least twice now, and I still don't feel like I understand Field in England enough. I think I understand what In the Earth is about far better, which I think is why I prefer it. If you've seen both of them, tell me which one you like the most in the comments. If you want to watch me review one of Reece Shearsmith's own series, then you can watch my review of Psychedelic right here. See you soon!
A nice warning, don't, whatever you do, go in that corner. No, it's alright, don't, it's just we've got a lamp there.